Hello and welcome. Today I have a special contents that I want to be sharing with you today. And this is called a horary chart that we're going to be casting. And it's focusing on the time of the questions being asked. And you can pretty much ask, a question that is legit and it's really towards your heart. And this person has asked, when is the relationship is going to be serious? And she's asking this question because she started dating this guy. Nothing is considered to be exclusive at the point, and she wants this to be the next level. If you don't know who I am, I'm Sindy V King. I'm a creator of Calling in My King. I help transform women to lasting love through Vedic astrology, neuroscience, and transactional analysis so that she becomes the queen of love. And today I really want to specifically use Horary. It is one type of tool of a divination. We understand that Horary is considered to be well respected. It's been used for many, many decades, even centuries, if you want to call it that. And today I want to make it into like a modern twist. So if you already know how divination works, we have to include other factors that maybe the text doesn't include. And sometimes it's like when you're reading the chart of the moment, there's other factors that are involved. Just for example, if I saw a crow that's flying through my window or across my window or whatever that might be, maybe I need to be focusing on Saturn. But, obviously in Horary in general, it doesn't teach you those type of things. So I have to factor everything that I'm hearing, seeing, feeling in the moment when I'm judging a chart. So that being said, I did get the results of this chart and I'm really excited to share this with you. And for housekeeping purpose, if you find that I'm too slow at speaking, you can always speed it up. I enjoy doing that myself per se. That's how I enjoy the content. And if you think my accent is too thick, you can't hear me properly, you can always use the subtitle as well. So there's obviously a function in the bottom, the corner that you can do that. And if you really like the stuff that I'm showing to you, I'm so grateful if you can hit the heart button that says thanks on it, and anything that you can give to me, I'm very grateful as well. You can always like and share the content. I just want to let you know what you're going to be seeing. It is considered to be a live chart, meaning that these two people still exist and probably continue to exist. They say the moment you cast a chart, that is, you can tell what's the future, past, present, everything about this chart. So these are real live chart. With the respect of this, I do want to suggest if you're like a heavy Virgo, stellium of Virgo, and you have a strong trait of Virgo, I'm going to let you know, I kind of just go on the fly. That's just how I roll. So sometime I'm going to be using different tools in my box, right? So that's what I like to do. And if you're in it for, you like the drama, or you want to learn about relationship, or you want to learn about divination, you're in the right spot, right? So I'm going to try to channel my inner Scorpio, if I have any, or my inner Gemini. And I'm going to tell you a story about these two people by using divination. I think it's one of the challenging tools, but it is powerful when you know how to use it correctly. So that's what I want to jump into it. So let's begin. So the first thing that I want to do is cast the chart, which has been cast already at this point. So right here, you can see the chart, it's been cast. So all you have to do, you can go astroseek.com. You can enter in the date and the time and location once you understand the question. So you can see on the very top what house system I'm using. I'm also using the house system as well, the inside circle, that gives me a better idea, like two different perspective. Just remember this, I come from a Jyotish background, meaning I came studying from Vedic astrology first, even if I practice the tropical side of it. So a lot of my techniques are originally from there. When it comes to the Western astrology wise, I'm fairly new to it. And who knows, I might be looking one day. I decide to look back in this video when I turn 80 and be like, what did I learn on this earth? And I'm going to be watching this. So this is a great portfolio in general, just to learn about how astrology works and how divination works. And I'm really excited to share this stuff with you. So you cast a chart, as you can see right above. The first thing we want to judge if this chart is legit, or this person is just playing games, or want to see if this astrologer has their game, or an A game, or no game. So that's the first thing we want to judge. We can judge it by using either, if you have your client's chart, that's great. That's what I have. I have both of their charts. So I can confirm what is actually happening and not happening. And the best part of it, when you cast the chart, you can go ahead, find the hour of this. So the hour we're noticing right away is going to be Venus, and the day is Jupiter, which is correct. So the ascendant here is Jupiter, and we're going to be focusing on Venus. Venus, 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 Venus. I want to know where Saturn is as well. If Saturn is hitting any of the angles, then the question needs to be, you want to consider like, okay, maybe the question is not the right question, or maybe there could be a judgment error, things like that. Okay. So, and I also want to see the degree of the ascendant. And right now it's smack at 14 degree per se. And I sometimes, most of the time, I should say, I use the lots as well. So you can see that. And I'm going to try to integrate that as I speak to you as well. What's really important about this chart is you go ahead, you analyze the ascendant, which is her, herself, her head, her brain, how she thinks, how she processes, and where it is hanging out. And right now we notice right away in the IC, which is the fourth house, it's also considered to be the house of end of the matters, right? It's sitting there. And we're looking at it specifically close to even the point of fortune. And what is point of fortune? Point of fortune is considered to be what we really, the great fortune that comes with this. You know, is there something that you really, really hope to have come out? And point of spirit is like what I really wish to happen, you know, what I really want to actually happen here. So we can obviously go ahead and see that right away. That Jupiter is hanging out in Aries. And what's really important, that we know that her head, sometimes the fourth house is considered to be known as the grave, the graveyard per se. It's underground. It's the stuff that you hide in, and it's in her own home as well. So she might be just hiding in her own house as well. Fourth house sometimes could be our parents' home too. And we know that she's a Jupiter type of person. So she's like known to be maybe a teacher, right? A philosopher. And for those who practice Jyotish, we know that the story about how Jupiter got cheated on, right? Because he was a workaholic, and, you know, the wife got lovesick and found another woman or person, or another human being per se. And that's what we can say, put a memo note on it. I'm not saying that's what actually did happen, right? That's the story of Jupiter. What happened to Jupiter? So we know that now her head is right now feeling that the world is going to end, right? So we know that. And right now, I really want to look at the co-ruler is the moon in this case, and it's hanging out in Libra again. So she has some sort of information about possibility, probably about Venus, which is right now sitting in the descendant, which is the house of relationship. So she might be wondering what's happening here. So we can obviously see that at the 27 degree, and it's about to move out of that house. And it's going to go into, obviously, if we look, the next house of Libra is Scorpio. And Scorpio is a detriment to the moon and stuff like that. So she's not in a very good condition per se in that space, even though it's showing in the 10th house, high and strong up there, right? Very visible. So she's really wondering what's going on, and she's not going to feel good about it. And now, once we analyze this, I really want to know how she feels afterwards. So let's analyze the descendant, and then we can go how they feel around each other as well. So let's go ahead and move into the descendant, which is the 7th house, right? That's him. He is a ruler right now as a Gemini, which is Mercury. And Mercury is in the 7th house, which is quite interesting. And Mercury right now, what I call him, is in peregrine. And what does that mean? That means he's out of place in a foreign land, don't speak the language, can't do anything else, got to rely on his host and whoever that host might be. We're going to unfold this chapter as we go on. And I'm going to go ahead and give him his Ani Mas, which is the sun. That's him as a man, as a masculine energy. Okay, so Mercury's going to be his head. His masculine energy is going to be the sun. And for her, I forgot to mention, Jupiter is her head and her, what we call her feelings. And sometimes we call that, you know, I think I have talked this in my channel about her head and her heart, right? So the moon would be her heart per se. And what I'm noticing right away, you know, it was at some point was opposite from each other. So she's ruminating for a while between her head and her heart. What's happening? Moving on, back to him. So the sun at this point is it's just entering in the 8th house. And what does the 8th house means? Well, literally, it can mean your bathroom, your toilet, or entering to hell, or anxiety, or things like that. I know it sounds very biblical, but that's what it is. That's the 8th house factor, is he's entering the hell of his life, and soon to be probably opposite the Pluto, which is her 2nd house. So the sun is also in peregrine too. And what does this all mean? So when we look at the sun, what is the sun ruler in this case? It's always going to look where the cosigner is. So if we go after 8, there's 9. When we see this is the 9th house right here. If you guys all see that, the 9th house is a Leo house right there. And that means that there's a good possibility that he's traveling to a foreign country, a language that he doesn't speak or understand per se. So he's out of his element in this case. So that's really interesting in general. So peregrine tends to be Egyptian as well. And you know, what's really interesting about this whole thing is I want to look at like who really stands out in this chart and what is actually happening to them. So what I tend to do is I go ahead and find out if any of the planet really stands out, yes or no. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to go ahead and pull up the declination. And that just tells me if there's any planet is considered to be abnormal, acting out of whack, or just being the Karen. In this case, we go ahead. What really stands out, obviously, right here is Mercury. Mercury is standing out. If you don't know what out of bounds is, I'm going to quickly pull out the definition here and just swing it over. This is called out of bounds, and out of bounds is 23.2622 for those who want to be exact, right? Otherwise, it's known 23.27. Okay. At this point, the only thing is out of bounds is this person right here. And who is Mercury? It's the guy that she's interested in. And how I would describe a planet that is considered to be out of bound. This is just a metaphor, okay? So you can visualize it in your head to have a better understanding, because we're kind of playing like a board game here and understanding how the player works, right? So this person is the guy that she's interested in, is parent. So, and it's in a sign of Cancer, I would have to say. So he's right here, and it's in a sign of Cancer. So this person is considered to be highly manipulative, a liar, a cheater, and when he speaks, it's like it makes your head turn. Like it's the oddball. That's what it is. Or sometimes we can call it the Karen. I wonder if you guys know the meme of the Karen. I don't know. Maybe I can like quickly Google it. Karen meme. Oh yeah. You can see a whole bunch of like memes about this is a Karen, and that's what it is. Just give you like a little bit of character building here to have a better understanding of what that looks like. But yeah, that's what he's like. So dealing with that type of energy, and sometimes it's just two great people, they just pull out the wrong strings, right? Relationship has its hits, and we all have some sort of dark shadow side energy that we all need to work on, right? Anyways, so that's him. So his ego, self-esteem is in the 8th house, right? Which when you finish using the toilet, you flush it. I don't get paid enough to teach you how to do that, but TikTok can. But in a funny sense, this guy is not looking too good of a guy to begin with. Highly manipulative, very and not only that, the ego is like the sun is combusting Mercury. So even he's not even clear for himself, what's happening. Like that's scratching his own head, right? About himself. And eventually it's going to enter into the 8th house. We had to remember the 8th house is, the stuff, the transformation that we need to go through. And when the ego is in there, I'm telling you, it's not that fun having not like a ego check, but like a whole, he's definitely not calling her for toilet paper for sure. I can tell you that. But not only that, but we can also notice like there's somebody is in the 7th house too. So I'm really curious who is this person that he's like kind of like running away from as well, what I call it, right? I'm really curious what that looks like. He's like ahead of her and she's like in 17 degrees and 5 degrees. So like he's separating from her, right? Going to the world of hell per se, or if not already in hell. So and it's in Gemini. So if we go from counting from the 7th house, and then we count all the way to the 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 11th house here. Okay. The cusp is right there. So this is telling me right now, the 11th house is actually Libra. And the 5th house is the house of fun, sex, and yeah. And who's sitting there? There's another woman in the picture right there. And we can go ahead and see the moon is in Libra. So she knows about it, or she's aware of it, right? I don't think it's her intuition knows it, but I'm going to give you a little bit of insight here. Dwara Samsha, this is the D12 chart. And I always look for the ascendant per se. In this case, the ascendant right here is a Libra. Sorry, Taurus right there. It's in a Taurus sign. That shows me and that tells me how they're going to resolve this issue. It's really focusing on the Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. And Venus is right now sitting in the 2nd house. So that's going to give me some clue that the topic of this conversation that's happening, even probably problem solving, is Venus right here. Venus, and Libra. And to give you guys some insight in the backstory, both of these two parties are Venus ruling signs. Okay. And also their moon sign is also Venus as well. And both of them, their sun sign is what? Gemini. So that gives you a little bit of insight. This is the correct chart. And there's something karmically is happening between the two people here, right? The real big focus here, it's really practically, she's not calling him for a hookup. I can tell you that, right? So now I want to know what's happening in the phone conversation. And this is really interesting. So we're going to use something called Antisha and Contra Antisha. If you don't know what it is, I'm going to pull up the Google Notes here, or I just Google it myself, just to remind myself. This is Antisha, Contra Antisha. It's like shining light. They're sharing lights together. Okay. So Antisha is considered to be a conjunction. Contra Antisha is like an opposition. Okay. So that's what we're going to be using now. So we're going to go back here and look at the chart again. So now we have an idea how they're going to resolve this problem that might be happening here. And we're going to go to Antisha here. Antisha in general, it's like they're shining light to each other and they're talking to each other. So we immediately see right away, if you look where the sun is, it's right on the descendant. So the conversation that she might be having with him or he's might having with her is that he's probably wanting to be in this committed relationship with this woman that he decided to go traveling with. Interesting enough, right? We also want to see and go ahead and move forward that we can see the Venus is also on top of the sun as well, just right in between Mercury and the sun right there. Okay. The closer the degree is, the better results that you're going to get. Yeah. I don't think I see anything that is like dead on, because I'm wanting things to be really like dead on. Jupiter herself, most likely telling me, okay, she might want to be traveling to her head wise, but there's nothing really connecting them per se about that. And even the moon herself. So it means that she contacted him based on this, right? Which is all very interesting in general. Okay, so we have to remember Antisha is like a conjunction, which is for good or worse, depends on the sign, right? It's acting like a contisha. And now we're going to look at the contra Antisha. So the contra Antisha acts like an opposition, but in this case, sometime an opposition tends to represent you lust for somebody, but they might be not that great for you, kind of thing. Okay. So in this case, if you even notice right there, the sun is right on top of the ascendant. So there's a part of him hates that he lusted her, right? Like lusting her, like just the way that she sounds turns him on, and he hates that. Ever been in a relationship like that? What's really interesting that, the Venus is in the second house, which the house of, to him, is his house of, interestingly enough, when you look at from the seventh house, right, it looks to the 8, this is the house of resources at time. So I have a good indication that she might pay for the trip to go with her. Right? That's an opposition. Doesn't like it, but she did it. Okay. On a serious matter, most important thing, I really want to know how they feel about each other, all of them. I want to know, how do they feel, like the girlfriend or the new girlfriend, or even the person who's asking the question, and even he as well. So let's go back and quickly go back here. She is going to be the Jupiter, which is her head. How does she really feels about him? So she really exalts the sun. So anytime the sun is going to be in Cancer, it's going to exalt Jupiter. So she really puts him in the pedestal. There's something, his anima, it's really turning her on, if you want to say. She's like, oh yeah, this guy, right? So that's really interesting per se. And let's look at where her heart is in per se. It really doesn't do much. It's in Libra, right? And it's fall, meaning the sun in this fall, meaning she really hates like the way he's sort of like kind of like showing off some sort of action that is being taken. And sometimes we can throw in, a masculine sign, but that's too much for him per se. Like his masculine, his libido could be Mars per se. The sun doesn't like that part of it as well. We could do that, but that's too many pieces. But we'll just put that on the side note, if that's not going to be the case. What is really interesting per se, when we look, she doesn't like him as a man, but she doesn't even acknowledge how his head thinks as well. Like he's so like very, I don't know, out there. That's Mercury. Doesn't even look at Mercury per se. Okay, now so we judge right now already the sun sign. It exalts Jupiter, right? That's him as a man, really likes how she thinks and how she sways. It exalts. When I say exaltation, what does it really mean? When it's hot and heavy, the flames really die down really quickly. If you remember chemistry, acid and base, when there's a fast reaction, the fun is over, right? This is not a slow burn at all. So he really feels like that about himself, per se. How about his head? How does he also, thinks about, the question here is like, what he thinks about her. So it also exalts Jupiter. Again, putting her on the pedestal, putting on the pedestal. But what's this triplicity here? Him as a man acknowledging Venus, which the girl that he decided to go on this vacation with, or this short trip or long trip or whatever you want to call it, but decided that's the triplicity. So that's really interesting. And eventually he's going to recognize that this girl that he's going on a vacation is in face. So there is no way I can see this right now if I just look at the sun and I look at him as a person, how he thinks, right? I can say that he's really like respect her, but doesn't love her. Like that man part of him is like, yeah, it doesn't even acknowledge her like whatsoever. Even though we saw Antisha right there, it's conjuncting, but there's a part of him, it's just not into her. He like can respect her, but he exalts Jupiter, by the way, right? And we can obviously notice right away, even Venus in general doesn't like Jupiter. So we got the right people in the player. That makes sense, right? It's an opposition. Even sensual dignity really clearly states that too, because Venus herself with the girl that the new girlfriend, if you want to call her that, let's call her the new girlfriend, right? She doesn't like Jupiter, which is the person who's asking the question. She absolutely, triplicity here, likes Mercury. So that's one thing. Well, if you're paying for a trip, then you better like the guy. I don't know what kind of arrangement this is, but it's an arrangement. Okay. So we already know right away, this is the problem here. We also notice like sometime we go from him in the 7th house, we can see what he's doing for work per se. So work wise, we can obviously go ahead and see that what's happening here. And that's his 10th house right here. Okay. And his 10th house tends to be, if we looked, where's the MC here? Sometimes it's hard to see. And I know that some software does it and some doesn't. So right here, I see it's going to be Pisces, right? So Pisces right here, which is a ruler of Jupiter. What I have learned in general in Horary, this is a side note here, you are beyond your chart. There's other people are being involved in this chart. Just practicing Jyotish has taught me that there's multiple layer, like literally Jyotish for me, it's like one house prediction is like, you can do 200 methods that you can come up with. It's literally like drinking out of the fire hose or just being on steroids. It's absolutely like mind blowing. So this is, you are beyond your chart per se. So we can obviously look at what Jupiter is doing, and it's a ruler of Mars. And where is Mars sitting? That's the house of his desire, right? Which is the 11th house per se, which is the 5th from hers, right? We already know that this whole astrology community, even astrologers, and if you don't know practicing astrology, we know that there is some outburst that's going to be happening in this field when it comes to Uranus and the North Node and Mars. That is all happening. It's coming to full. So there's some stuff that's happening. It's going to come out of the blue for him, work-wise. And, I believe in cause and effect. You probably chose the wrong woman to mess with. I really believe in that. And it really showcased that. But not to dramatize the whole experience here, right? We already know that how these people feel with each other. So I want to know, what is the connection between the two people? And sometimes I look at, well, you're supposed to look at the moon, right? So, and also if there is going to be a connection that's going to be happening between the two people as well. Yes, we absolutely said Jupiter, Mercury is about to square Jupiter, right? We could be like, oh, okay, that's a done deal, but that's not true. He really likes her and she really likes him. Well, her heart doesn't, but like that manly side of him. But we know that he's like a liar anyway. So like, make a mental note. He's not going to be really honest with you. And he's practically trying to figure out how his story is going to line up for him. So we see that, obviously, but I want to know, like, this is a side note. Why is this all happening in general? Like, what is actually happening? Sometimes the client doesn't want to tell you, or they're too embarrassed, or whatever that might be. I want to know. Okay. There's a really strong connection here when it comes to Saturn. Saturn is the strongest point, even though he's retrograde. That means that there's something that actually happened between them. Okay, so I want to know. And it's actually in her second house, which means that she's probably was making money, trying to figure it out and create a foundation for herself. That's what it is. And now it's in the third house. So my statement to this, there's a good chance that she was probably traveling, met him, really liked him, went on a few dates, flew back and forth per se. That's why it's retrograde. So you can't really do anything about it. And you have to understand, the sun does not like Saturn. That means the distant. That's ninth from the house, right? So if you go from the seventh house, that's his, doesn't like the distance. Doesn't like the distance. So that's the problem in the relationship. She was making money and then she got busy or creating a foundation for herself financially. And she traveled, she met him. Okay. Things thought could be solid per se. But here's the catch 42 here, if that's what you want to say. We already know that he has decided that he's on this trip. But my thing, even though it's a square, I could create a square to a try. So it's like a fake square per se. Sometime in a relationship, you got to get your baggage out there per se, and how you feel. These two heads are butting each other. That means that sometime when it's a square, you might wish that it never happened. So the connection will happen. So because he's a paragrant and he's completely out of bounds, meaning he's a little bit like a Karen, he will say things like, based on the degree, 2.3, whatever you want to call it, that it could be 2 days. He's going to be the one making the connection. It's not her, by the way, because he's the one who's moving forward, and she's just going to be retrograding at this point, eventually back and forth until it hits to Pisces. So she's going to be in this state of feeling like, oh gosh, kind of thing. So he's going to be driving back and forth, and it's going to take him a while, to be honest, because he still is just in the beginning of the 8th house. So he just, took it in to the hell and needs to go through the Pluto component of it, of the transformation. So he's probably flushing his ego down the toilet and be like, oh my God, what did I have done? Right. And then Mercury itself is just getting the ticket to going to hell, just purchasing that ticket, or just been given to him. So he needs to go through that as well. He's eventually moving away from this Venus person that he's going to, and which is really interesting as well. And because there's something that's going on with his work life, it's going to throw him off. That's what it is. This is really a cause and effect. This is like some domino effect here that's happening between these two people. So it's going to take him a while to get his self-esteem in there. But what's really interesting, I sometimes use fixed signs as well. So fixed stars, and it's going to show me right away. It's really close to the star. Where is it? Sirius, it's right there. And then Capricorn is right here. And it's also showing this star right here. This is the end of the matter, or just the end, or just ending in general. So even though Sirius is considered the bright star and the only one, but it's in the 8th house. So he's going to have a lightning strike there. And it's going to really showcase, like, what have I done, really? So that being said, that kind of indicates what are these players. I'm pretty sure I miss a whole bunch of notes in between, but I can say right now, per se, even Jupiter is going to be moving in and out here, and this is giant explosion that's happening. This is a real live chart. I'm letting you guys all know this. She's feeling like her head in the grave, really, like she's hiding out and doesn't want to be display. And you look at Pluto here, it's in her 2nd house and tends to be self-esteem as well. So he knows that he really likes how like Jupiter makes him feel and stuff like that. It makes him feel real excited and stuff. And he lusts for her, per se. But he lied to her. And that's his character. That's part of his survival, I guess, and I think I put on my YouTube channel about why people lie and stuff like that. It's like situational, he knows that how much he have hurt her in that way. So let's go back here, and then we can do the aspects as well. Oh, I like using lots too. So we can use lots here, and that kind of helps you indicate, okay, who's also the player out here as well. Even the lot of Aries is lot of mother. So when we go back to Aries here, let me even display this. Do I display it? I don't know how much it's going to show up. Yeah, so we can obviously know that right here on the 4th house is the house of mother. So she might be hanging out with her mom, per se, while she's going through the healing process. Whatever I just did with you at this point, this is like one third of what you need to be telling the client is the solution. The solution, like her head is down here in the gutter. He's with this other girl. She knows about it because this is in Libra. And then as well, where her second house right here has Pluto. So it's a big shock to her self-esteem. And then the moon, that's her heart. It's going to go move right into Scorpio, right? You know, and she's going to get some support from her friends and stuff like that. And right now, we obviously know that anything the self know touch tends to mean you need to dissolve it, right? It's gone. It's done. And she knows that she doesn't really like the fact about even his masculine sign. This is a libido, if you want to call it that. We can give it like that. So it's going to take a while for these people to come out. So would I say it's 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? The way that he is and the entry of the ticket to hell or transformation or the valley of hell, very biblical. And it's really funny, but she's also pulling out her cupid arrow to him from the grave. This is starting to feel like Mr. and Mrs. Smith at this point. I don't condone violence, but I don't think that's what it is. But what I'm trying to say that this is a situation that two people are just not compatible with each other, really. Even though she wished there's a good possibility of traveling, right? She really wants to go and travel and be there. He doesn't want to travel. So I can tell you that long distance traveling is not, which for her, short-term distant travel, but there's a Saturn, it's there, it's allowing, but she needs to be working on the foundation of her money and her finance and figuring out what's the next level of her skill as well. So there is some sort of restriction here, even though it's allowed, but she knows that she's better off focusing on her skills than it is on this relationship. So that's the one thing that you can tell her. That's one solution. Focusing just Saturn itself. It's trying the moon. It's also trying the Venus person as well. So there is some greatness that happens between the two here as well. I'm going to be sharing in the membership of the solution using just essential dignity, how to actually resolve this. What I have so far is show you what is it like, what's the problem, where did it start, and how did it start, and who he is as a person and who she is as a person, and where her entry and exit is. You have to understand the second house is exit of hell. So when Saturn is eventually going to move direct, it's going to go back there, right? She's not very clear what's happening. We can tell when the point of fortune has Neptune, there's some sort of even deception of communication that might even happen between the two people as well. It is moving in the fourth house. 25 is you're ready to move it to the next house, and it's moving in there. So she might not even feel like this is like a hopeful situation. Whatever Neptune touched, that's what it dissolved. And when I see that, when the moon is in contact with the IC, where also Neptune is and point of fortune, we know that, and it's considered to be almost close to an opposition. So we already know that this is she's confused, obviously, and that makes a lot of sense why she feels confused. yes, you can freak out the client by telling her all this and stuff that she didn't even say or mention, but it really indicates show clear what's going to happen. So he's going to eventually contact her. I would say 2 months, maybe, based on where things are being played out and things are being exploded. And then she's not going to contact him. She doesn't like the masculine side of that, doesn't even like the sun. So I already know that, but he's going to come back with this like excitement, like, oh, why did I ever leave you? Why didn't I choose you? Like, what was I thinking? Like Karen, like being the over exaggerated Mercury and out of bounds where people is going to double check. And this guy is a highly manipulative person, by the way, in character wise too. So we can look at aspects wise, give showcase. If you don't know what that looks like, here it is. That can showcase. So the sun did square Jupiter as a separation, meaning there was some sort of contact in the past. And I would say maybe 7 days was a form of contact. Then the moon is going to try to Mercury, which is applying, right? Which is already at 8 degrees. So that means there was some successful connection that happened. It could be negative or positive, but there was a connection. The moon did. And then the moon's going to go into an opposition at 4 degrees. And we already saw that, his libido is in detriment. How I would describe detriment in Mars and Taurus per se. It's like telling somebody to hurry up and they decided to like slow down even further. It's like wearing the chastity belt. It's like you call up for booty call and then they're wearing a chastity belt. Or it's like, you're taking a butter knife and sawing the log. You'll be there all day. So that's what's happening. So there's no real action that's going to be happening in this. And it's an opposition per se, right? So if you hear kids screaming, they're confirming what I'm saying is true. Okay, and then the moon's going to be trying to Saturn here. So again, she's going to look into her neighborhood. That's one thing is positive is going for her, is it is a grand trine eventually. I'll let you guys leave a mental note in the comment section. Mercury itself is going to be sextiling Mars as a separation. So he's obviously thinking about this situation in the past. And maybe that's possibly the romantic relationship, maybe having kids, maybe, right? We already know that Mercury itself does like Mars, so it's in term, but also eventually goes into its fall as it kind of moves on. So that's kind of indicating like, oh, he's probably excited over that, but no libido, no action. So that's how, no bueno. Okay. And then we're going to go to Mercury. We are talking about the Mercury square Jupiter, and it's about to apply 2.27 if you want to round it up to 3. I would say maybe 3 weeks, even longer. And then Venus is going to eventually try Saturn. So that would be interesting on its own too. But eventually Venus herself really likes, in terms of Jupiter, as like eventually like Venus doesn't like Mars. It's going to go into phase. Eventually it goes to term and then phase, and then it doesn't even acknowledge him, whatever he's kind of planning out his life about work wise, or that's her in general. So that being said, I used quite a lot of the tools here. So was the story is true about Jupiter? Yeah, I would say yes, because we can indicate now that the question to this is no. right? The $1,000,000 question is, how do you resolve this? And what can you say about this? This is where I'm going to be showing more of essential dignity, because he has a vacation girlfriend. That's it. He has a vacation girlfriend, but he will contact you. Maybe I would say 2 weeks. Let's do this. 2.3 weeks or month, mostly months at this point. And because he's dealing with work stuff as well. And that is a wrap for that. Just know that this is like a live chart. So once you cast the chart, you can always reuse it too. You can come back and reuse it, and then it's going to give you the same. So you don't need to cast a chart. So next time it will be her. Like the X in general tells you a little bit more about the person, but you're here to kind of give some insight. Horary is supposed to give you some sort of insight and reality checked, and even sometimes clarity of like, why would you want to be with somebody in a relationship who is like completely, absolutely, his form of communication is highly manipulative. Even I would even say gaslighting, even to the point he will love bomb you and it will feel great at the moment. And then he used this technique called the push-pull technique. And that's what we see right away, an opposition, so that you lust him. So that's very clear in the chart how that says. And whatever material thing that you're wanting from him, because there's Venus is the indicator as well. It could be material possession. Is it even worth getting it back from him, or whatever that might be that you're requesting? So I'm going to give you the clip note, the feedback that I got from this chart now. And if you like so far, what you're hearing and what you're kind of like seeing today, I want you to really put a good thumbs up. This is a real life chart. I really want you to put the yellow heart or gold heart in the comments below. And just the gold heart really represent, hopefully these people come together, need to learn whatever they need to learn, and be amicable and mature and like let go if that's the case, or come together in a place that is more in peace and understanding that. So I really setting like loves and prayer for both of them, and whatever is causing this cause and effect, it's all affecting their personal life, and you have to understand that too. So that's being said, the clip note about this per se is she contacted him and says, just checking up on him. And then he's like, by the way, I'm doing great. Family's good. Work is good. And his health is great. That's what he said. And by the way, I'm on a vacation with this girl that I have respect for, which we saw in Essential Dignity. And okay, so, and practically maybe limit of the number of texts that needs to happen. That's what it is. And said, she just responded, well, congratulations and have a wonderful vacation. And too bad we have this high chemistry that we can create, but with respect, let that go. My assumption when this phone conversation all happened, went down, if we went back here, the eighth house, like I was saying, is at the bathroom, the toilet, or whatever. He's probably making the phone call from there or trying to call her about this item that she's kind of requesting here, which is the second house. And he practically said that I'll be back maybe in 2 weeks or so. And then he can deal with it from there on. But my bet was that, you know what? I have a good feeling that he's going to get caught up with his work life and he's going to blow this girl off. And that's that, really, per se. And if he decided to come back within that time frame that I was really suggesting, I have a good indication knowing that he's going to come back with his lies and very, very deceitful. Be caution. Now, the remedy, how to make her feel better. Well, if you want to watch about that information, you will see that on my membership. You can go there. You also can request a booking time to actually ask for a Horary. I'm open to doing that for my members as well. I really find that it's really important to contribute in that way. And I made a decision to do it on a, Astral Seek here. I understand that some people don't have software, but what's really most important here that I forgot to mention is Essential Dignity is right here. And you really want to memorize this table right here. You can also go to astralfox.com right here. I don't think this is always accurate, but it works. You can just you have to type in the location and so forth and time here as well. So that makes a lot of sense here. And it's going to spit out Essential Dignity table for you. Or I really recommend you working your brains. In the other word, trying to memorize Essential Dignity. We learn this in Jyotish. But if you don't have the software, I know sometimes the software is like $300 or $500. It's very expensive, and I get it if you're trying to learn, but you definitely need to memorize this table here, and it's going to help you understanding if there is any success or not. So I would try to memorize it. And that's going to help you really tell you where the biggest strength and how people feel. I'm going to be doing that in the membership. And sometimes I just don't even need to look at the chart itself. I just look at Essential Dignity and I can already say like what's actually is going to happen here, right? So that's the best part of it. I would have to say, I don't know any, well, and that's most of the tip that I just showed you how I would go about it. I know there's a strict method to do it. I kind of just go, intuitively. I'm like, okay, well, I want to be using this. Okay. If I didn't check this, I wouldn't even have an idea. I wouldn't have a clue that this is out of orbit. And when it's out of orbit, we already know it's not acting in its normal state. And we already know right here, 22 and Pluto, that's an opposition right there. So it's kind of close to out of orbit, but it's still within range, right? So even here, the ascendant 22.29 is even close to, I can consider that conjunction. Oh, and it's so much more fun if you even eventually, if you add in like Lilith, Chiron, and stuff. But sometimes just keep it simple and basic just helps a lot. All right, so this is a wrap. I want to thank you so much for joining me. If you like contents like this, you know how to say thanks by clicking the heart button right under the video. And then I'll just keep making type of videos like this. And if you see stuff that I probably most likely will miss, you can always write a comment down below if you're like considered to be an extra. I like videos like this. I love doing stuff like this because it helps either learn, even like sometime improve your technique as well. And it's so much fun. I like doing lost items and missing animals and stuff like that. So I'm going to be making, my next goal is probably making charts of like when he first texts you, you can tell where the relationship goes. So that's my next content that I really want to do. And as well, maybe going on the first date. So your first meeting, what is this going to be like and how it's going to be and where you're going to go as well. So this is I'm going to be making more videos like this. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, I want to thank you so much for joining me today and also allowing me to kind of be with you guys. So otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye now.